Welcome, everyone, to the launch of Body Stories, In and Out and With and Through Fat, edited by Jill Andrew and May Friedman. My name is Angela Gogia, and I'm the events coordinator at Another Story Bookshop. Tonight's launch is presented by Unifor National Chair in Social Justice and Democracy, She Does the City, and Another Story Bookshop in Toronto. I would like to introduce our host for tonight's event, Joshna Maharaj, who is a chef and activist in Toronto who wants to help everyone have a better relationship with their food. Her first book, entitled Take Back the Tray, captures the lessons and experience from her work to create a shareable blueprint for changing institutional food systems around the globe. Joshna is a regular guest on CBC Radio, a passionate public speaker, and she also co-hosts a food podcast called Hot Plate. Please join me in welcoming Joshna Maharaj.
Hello, how nice. Thank you. It's lovely to be here with all of you. I hope you're all doing very well this evening. I'm Joshna Maharaj, as you said. I'm a chef and activist and author myself, and I'm really delighted to be here with all of you this evening. We're going to start things off with a land acknowledgement. So if you could all just take a moment, take a nice breath, and just let's have a moment of reflection here. The sacred land on which we operate has been a site of human activity for 15,000 years. This land is the territory of the Huron-Wendat and the Petun First Nations, the Mississaugas of the Credit River, and the nations of the Haudenosaunee Confederacy. The territory was the subject of the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, an agreement between the Haudenosaunee Confederacy and the Ojibwe and allied nations to peaceably share and care for the resources around the Great Lakes. Two Row Wampum says, "We are going to live on this land together and respect each other's sovereignty." The Dish with One Spoon is an agreement that recognizes that we live off of the same resources. It is hard to eat a collective meal together off of a dish with one spoon. Hence, protocols are put in place to ensure mutual respect and accountability to each other and to the land. Ontario is covered by 46 treaties and other agreements. Today, the meeting place of Toronto is still the home to Indigenous people from across Turtle Island. Our intersecting communities are comprised of those native to this land, Indigenous people from other territories, as well as settlers who have come here by choice, force, or otherwise as a result of colonialism and imperialism. The Truth and Reconciliation Commission 94 calls to action reaffirms that the treaties with Indigenous peoples must be lawfully honored. We are all treaty peoples, and we are responsible for honoring and upholding those agreements. We are grateful for the opportunity to work on this territory and share space with all of you. We'd like to thank Kike Roach and Salman Khan from Ryerson and Jen McNeely from She Does the City. Also, thanks go to Andrea O'Reilly and Demeter Press. Tonight, we will feature presentations by Jill Andrew, co-editor of Body Stories, and the following contributors: Elise Einen, Dorothy Yankoon, May Louis, Liana DeMarco, Sucharita Sarkar, Elise Einen, Kat Pausé, and Lise Windishman. We will have time for audience Q&A at the end. We're going to ask audience folks to put questions in the Q&A section in the Zoom in the Zoom template. I'm not sure whether that's open right now, but we will definitely let you know when that happens. Also important things to note is books. Get yourself a copy of this beautiful book. Books are available for sale at Another Story Bookshop, anotherstory.ca. Thank you, Jill. They're open for curbside pickup, local delivery, and shipment across Canada. So please order and support your local independent bookstore and get your copy of this lovely book from them. Okay. I'm now going to read out bios of all the lovely folks we have speaking, and then I will hand it over to Jill. So Dr. Jill Andrew co-founded Body Confidence Canada, #Sizeism Sucks, and is a politician, NDP, MPP in Toronto, St. Paul's. May Friedman's research looks at unstable identities, including bodies that do not conform to traditional racial, national, or aesthetic lines. May works at Ryerson in the School of Social Work and in the graduate program in Communication and Culture. Elise Einen is an inclusive feminist academic, author, and expert in reproductive health, rights, and inclusive pedagogies. Elise Einen is a writer, foodie, filmmaker, and fashionista currently residing in Atlanta, Georgia. Dorothy Yankun is Germany's first certified intuitive eating counselor, cultural anthropologist, and transformational life coach. May Louis is a mixed race, fat, curvy, and plump feminist, activist, and educator based in Toronto. Liana DeMarco is a super talented singer, songwriter, poet, short fiction writer, and artist. Dr. Kat Pausé is a fat studies scholar at Massey University in New Zealand. She studies fat stigma as a social determinant of health and has called for a new fat ethics. Sucharita Sarkar is an associate professor from Mumbai, India, a researcher of motherhood and mothering issues, and a tummy mummy with 2 daughters. Lise Windishman is a mindful living content creator, inspiring people to create lives they love and nurture themselves, mind, body, and soul. Now I'd like to welcome Jill Andrew to say a few words. Please, Jill.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us this evening for Body Stories. My goodness, I'm so excited. I am nervous. I am grateful. As an educator, as a Black, queer, fat woman, I cannot tell you how proud, frankly, I am for us to have this moment. Where this project has come to completion, this anthology is out, and our narratives, our stories about our bodies are in this world. And it couldn't have happened without May Friedman, my co-editor. Thank you so much, May. It could not have happened without Demeter Press. And tonight wouldn't happen without She Does the City. Jen, thank you. Andrew, Another Story Bookshop, and of course, Kike Roach, Unifor National Chair for Social Justice and Democracy, and our fantastic host, Joshna. Thank you so very much for being here today. There's so much I could say about the book, so much, and I wanted to. I wasn't sure what I wanted to say, but I decided in the last 4 hours to speak from my heart. This is a book about us speaking about our bodies. All too often, fat people are spoken about. People who are made marginalized by systems of oppression, by racist narratives, by fat hatred narratives. We are talked about, we are researched, we are categorized. Body Stories is a chance for us to reclaim space, for us to tell our stories, for us to grapple with what our fat bodies have meant to us throughout different portions of our life. We have stories that situate our fatness with our race, with our ethnicity, with our culture, with our religion. We have stories that situate our fatness within our sexuality, without our sexual experience as sexual beings. We have stories that flirt with fashion, and with how we present ourselves in this world, and how those presentations are read, and how those presentations work for and against us at times. We have stories that are painful, stories that are truly celebratory, stories with unhappy endings, ones with happy endings. What I love about, our anthology is the level of vulnerability, the level of generosity that every contributor shared within the pages of this book. It's not a how to love your body anthology. You know, it's not an anthology that claims to have all your answers. It is non-linear. It is messy. It is complicated. It doesn't cover the entire terrain of fat studies or a fat embodiment, and it never claims to. But what it does is it has provided a space for each and every one of us to tell a piece of our lives, to share a piece of our lived expertise as woman identifying folks, as folks of different genders or gender representations, of folks with different disabilities, abilities, mobilities, folks of different ages, and I just cannot say thank you enough for everyone who has shared their heart. We have educators, in this book who have courageously placed their bodies as sites, as pedagogies of learning, as tools to push forward narratives that are not violent, that challenge violence against fat bodies, racialized bodies, against bodies with disabilities. We have people who have, through beautiful stories, talked to their bodies, in ways that have provided us, provided me with words that I can use to talk to my body, when she needs a little TLC. I think what is clear is that we have all had complicated relationships with our bodies. We are social subjects. We're inextricably linked with society. We're linked with all of the institutions and the rules, said and unsaid, that govern, and that means that as people, we have a right to speak back to those rules. We have a right to reflect on those assumptions. We have a right to challenge them and to create some of our own. And to me, what this anthology does is it allows us to have as many stories as we have, and as many as are not in here. But this volume provides a space for someone to pick up a book and hopefully see that they're not alone, see that they are not disconnected. Nothing is wrong with them. They are good enough just the way they are. And that even our own self-criticism is our attempt to make sense of the world around us, the systems around us. It's our attempt to make connections, to build community any way we can. And I can tell you this book took many, many, many years, too many years to come to fruition. But really, at its genesis, it was simply about me trying to find community, me trying to find out what other people were thinking about their bodies, how other people were talking about their bodies, and to try to make sense of it all. So I'm really, really, really glad that this is out. I'm glad that it is here. I'm glad that our stories are out. And I just want to say thank you. Body Stories in and out and with and through fat. Here it is. Fat in all its intersectionalities. Well, not all of them, but many of them. Thank you.
I think it's over to me now. Yeah, great. Hi, everybody. I'm so excited about this book. It's been a real labor of love. It's taken us a long time to get here through a lot of iterations, and like any other labor, has been painful and wonderful and joyous and hard all along the way, which is probably gives us a lot to think about in terms of our relationship with fat, that it is all of those things, beautiful and hard all at once. I had a chance to write the afterword for this book, and I got to talk a little bit about the experience of going into a third grade classroom and trying to unseat some sort of bullying behaviors that were around fat bodies, and how quickly and easily young people were able to change their attitudes about fat bodies, about fat oppression, and to understand this as something that they ought to see as any other social justice fight and take on proudly. And as I write in the book, this didn't happen because I'm so great. It happened because for these kids, this was, they're still open to the idea that we ought to all be treated with dignity and respect. And a small correction to some of the messaging they were getting from elsewhere quickly brought them into a different and new place. And it gives me hope. It gives me hope when I see these kids, but this book gives me the same kind of hope that we can carry forward into a world that is more just and that really puts us where we want to be. So with that in mind, I want to read just a couple paragraphs from the afterword before I turn it over to the next person. We have a strange hope going forwards, one that is a departure from the expectations of most authors and academics. We hope this book quickly becomes dated. We hope that people will view the violence put toward fat bodies as a historical aberration, with the same quizzical confusion with which we now view the historical persecution of people who are left-handed. We hope that the world that the third grade so easily engaged will become our new reality, and that the healthist witch hunt that equates obesity with sin and damnation will fade and become merely a puzzling moment in our history. Of course, although it's our fervent desire to eradicate fat oppression and move to a time where body acceptance and self-love can be taken for granted, we also understand the depth of the challenge and the extent of the work needing to be done. The authors of this collection contribute to the quest to change the world in the name of body integrity and beyond, because we acknowledge that our fight for size acceptance is inextricably bound up in other fights. Fat bodies cannot be truly safe until we simultaneously eliminate the impacts of racism, colonization, homophobia and transphobia, violence against people with disabilities, violence against women, and many, many other fights beyond. So I'm going to keep my hope together and hope that we get to where we want to be. And thank you all so much for being a part of this tonight.
I pronounce myself the give up champion. I give up on apologizing for my weight with black clothes, old big clothes that never fit, and clothes that say, don't look at me. I give up on pretending. I need to be smaller. I need to smile harder. These delicious criticized layers, warm like a stack of buttered pancakes, thick like a freshly printed manuscript. These are the lips to my rebirth. This extra thick groove in my back, made to hold me up when I am straddling between capitalism and artistry, femininity and the patriarchy, identity and propaganda, spirit and space, crackling at the boiling point of my own insanity. These jagged, unabridged flaps don't answer to anyone. They hold me up from falling when my anxiety is screaming, and I need the spirits to make my world quieter. These criticized layers are my wings, and I will use them to fly through the universe, blowing kisses to morsels of children, raising Black girl identities with the soul of my pen, allowing them to name this bridge called my back a sanctuary, the couch they can have any night of the week. These flaps, the path I point to ancestors when they need a fix of the grip in my neck. I'm gonna go ahead and do a second poem. This is called Weight in Gold. God damn it, girl. Don't you get it yet? You are worth my weight and your own in gold. Juggling fear and rejection like back pain. Replace lonely lovers with unworthy lovers. Looking for self-worth in pretty sounding promises. Gracious for crumbs or scraps. Anything to get you through the tears. You deserve kisses for every curvature of your quirkiness. You deserve good love, the kind that stretches into your backbone, elongates down your spine, and prickles into your neck, flows through your arms and legs, sings in your smile, and reverberates when you walk. A love whose melody washes the memory of all the people who forgot to love you. How low you felt when you lost your job. You are worth your weight and your own in gold. I say it to you because I don't think you've heard it enough. You heard you were stupid or fat or not pretty enough, not good enough to reach out into the earth for something good. You see love as something to keep away the lonelies. I want these words to be your wake-up call, your aha moment. Hallelujah, Holy Ghost, fall on the ground and break yourself. I want this to be the moment when all the confetti and lights rain down on you as you finally step up for yourself. I want you to break open, transform in new skin. I am praying for your breakthrough. Whisper these words over you while you sleep. Thank you.
All right, it's fitting that my story is named My New Skin. So here we go. I want to read you the last paragraph. Although I got my tattoo to celebrate my newfound body positivity, the tattoo has done so much more for me. I definitely no longer feel disgusted when I look at my body in the mirror anymore. Weirdly, I also feel less naked because I have the feeling of always wearing something beautiful, if that makes sense. Even on a bad body day, I look at my thigh and I'm reminded that I have overcome tough moments in my life. I managed to heal my relationship with food and my body, and I'm working on healing past traumas one step at a time. I finally am able to see myself through loving, benevolent eyes like my partner sees me. Not just my tattoo, my whole body is a beautiful work of art and deserves the same love and respect. By making the conscious decision to commemorate my success with something that will last, my tattoo acts as a constant reminder, a touchstone, if you will, of me pulling myself out of the metaphorical swamp of body hatred, body shame, internalized fat phobia, as well as grief for my mother. It is important for me to stress this because as a person suffering from depression, I need to be able to see my accomplishments in an undeniable way when my depression is getting a hold of me again. With my tattoo, I am telling my personal body love story, my ongoing quest for peace and healing in my own skin. I'm showing empowerment and agency because I chose it for myself.
Hello, this is wonderful to be here tonight. I want to specifically thank Anjula Gogia from Another Story and Jill Andrew for her vision and passion for this project. I'll be reading from my chapter, Here Comes Fat May, Learning and Relearning to Love My Body. Food. In my mixed cultural upbringing in the suburban and urban metropolises of Montreal and Toronto, food was more than food. For my Jewish mother and her family, food is love, comfort, and nurturing. Food is what we talk about when we don't want to talk about real things. For my Chinese father, food was celebration, family, duty, togetherness. I remember the merged foods of the everyday: congee, brisket, latkes, chassu, smoked meat sandwiches with rye bread and caraway seeds, Montreal bagels, vive le Saint-Viateur, hagao, and ho fun noodles. I love food. I love eating with friends and original, chosen, and found family. Pesach, Lunar New Year, Jewish brunches, dim sum weekends. Eat, eat. Food also comforts other hungers. Food is more than food. It connects me to my culture and heritage. It also soothes hurt, sadness, and loneliness, as well as anger and frustration. Body theory, body real. In 1986, at age 19, I moved out. I had part-time jobs and went to university part-time. I discovered feminism, reclaimed my mixed race identity, and found anti-racism, anti-colonialism, socialism, and queer theory. I learned many empowering ideas, practices, and actions. Even more shifted for me as I found the white feminist critique of the female beauty ideal. Naomi Wolf's The Beauty Myth was revolutionary to me at the time, but the critiques would come later. I learned about the multi-million, at the time, now in the billions, dollar weight loss industry. I read the most radical words I'd ever read to that point. What if women stopped hating our bodies? What if women stopped spending money trying to lose weight, trying to attain an unattainable beauty ideal? What if we took that energy and turned it into something positive?
what would happen? And beyond beauty ideals, which are simply not attainable for many of us based on racist, classist, heteronormative, ciscentric, and ableist notions of beauty. What about the complexity of the idea of beauty? What about the multifaceted world that is women, femmes, and femme-identified trans and queer folks? Aren't we more than what we look like?
Hi. Well, Jill, how many decades did it take to get here? I know I met Jill when we were just talking about this book.
Almost two.
Yeah. And in those 2 decades, my career has modified, grown, all kinds of things. I'm not really, the musician in me is still there. However, I spent the last 10 years, could say advocacy, but I would say fighting to stay alive. And I ended up in the last few years becoming an instructor, still doing the advocacy. And believe it or not, I'm now a wellness coach. I got sick and tired of watching women die from medical bigotry, including my sister and my mother. My mother passed away last summer and my sister died about 10 years ago. I got tired of all that. And so I had, after doing my master's, I actually focused on the representation of women in the industry with a look at sizeism and ableism on the stage. It's not what I started out to do. I started out to be a musician on the road and all that other exciting stuff. But I quickly learned that it made no difference how good I was still fat. Now, it's 20 years later, I'm a little lighter, but guess how I lost the weight? I had kidney failure 3 years ago. A lot of it was medical. I almost died the same way my mother did. I kept complaining about something. They kept saying, just lose weight. Guess what? I lost the doctor. Believe it or not, the doctor died before me. So you can work out all you want, okay? And I'm proud of that. When I wrote this, I kind of wrote it at a whim when Jill asked me to write something for it. Now I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, geez, who knew I could think like that 20 years ago? Anyway, I called it Not Too Fat to Tango. I got sick and tired of people telling me, you can't do that. You're never going to make a living because nobody's going to hire you as long as you're fat. Now I have lost weight just on its own because of health and wellness. However, I had health issues that cause weight gain. I also have several friends. I have one friend in particular who's 450 pounds, healthy as hell, nothing wrong with her. So I'm sick and tired of this BS. I almost died. I stopped eating. I'd love to be like May, a foodie. I'm not. Took me a long, actually, I've only started eating solids about 2 months ago. I had the transplant and now I can eat again. So I'm slowly learning to love food again. I'll read the poem that Jill was gracious to include in the book. Left, right, forward, turn, back, repeat. Flop, roll, drop. On the floor, close the door, no more. Snore. Right to laugh, be happy. Prize to love and live, passion. Get up off that floor, dance, smile, laugh. Party starts when the fat lady sings. Grab a friend to the floor and dance. Let's do the tango. Time to revitalize the heart, the beauty, the I am. Thank you, everybody.
Kia ora, everyone. My name is Kat Pause, and I'm very pleased to be part of this collection. I also want to just thank May and Jill for the amazing work that they've done in this space and how they have helped keep us all together, bring us all together across the long time it took us to bring this all to fruition. My friend Gabrielle has a tenuous relationship with the medical profession. Like many women, she's been subjected to condescending discussions around her diet, exercise, and weight from healthcare professionals who usually don't bother to take any time to learn anything actually about her health. or her health behaviors. They simply reprimand her, right, for not doing enough to ensure her body mass index falls into the normal category. She had an established relationship with a particular doctor who, I guess we could say, tolerated her refusal to be weighed during her regular appointments, but still regularly subjected her to unsolicited nonsense about her body. One day, Gabrielle found herself needing a refill on her inhaler prescription while she was in the middle of an asthma attack. She managed to get herself to her doctor's office, who refused her request for a refill of her prescription until she agreed to be weighed. So there she was, standing in the middle of the doctor's office, really struggling to breathe and being told that unless she got on the scale, her refill wasn't going to be provided. Unfortunately, my friend Gabrielle's experience is not uncommon. It is a shared experience by many fat people around the world in a variety of healthcare situations. We know that healthcare providers hold very negative attitudes towards fat people. They believe their fat patients to be less compliant, um, less hygienic, less willing to participate in their own care, and they treat us then accordingly. They spend less time with us. They're less likely to engage in preventative diagnostic testing with us. And some, we know, don't even want to have to touch us. Those that are willing to touch us often don't know how. So they do not know how to palpate a fat abdomen, for example, or how to even do CPR on a fat body with a fat neck. So my story, like many people's stories, is about the risks of being fat, not for any physiological cause, but because we are not going to get ethical or evidence-based healthcare in most healthcare situations. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Good morning from Mumbai. It's Monday morning here, and it's a pleasure to be with all of you, slightly behind in time over there. So I'll just be reading out a little extract from the letter I wrote, which was included in this book, Body Stories. Thank you, May and Jill, for that. So I'll start right now. It's a letter to the Indian Yummy Mummy. And so I write, Dear Indian Yummy Mummy, I'm writing to you from my oppositional subject position as a tummy mummy. Yes, tummy mummy is the name my daughters have given me, more in loving observation than in sneering derision. I do not fit into the contours of the standardized yummy mummy, and I carry on my body the marks of reproductive activity, even 1.5 decades after giving birth. I acknowledge how you have interrupted the traditional discourse of good Indian motherhood, which valorizes selfless service, and have reclaimed your body as a site of agentic transformation. I applaud you for resexualizing the mother, for apparently bridging the gap between maternity and sexuality, a gap so long concealed in the 9-yard folds of the sari. But, Yummy Mummy, your project to perfect your body is impelled by internalized patriarchal cultural codes that devalue the female self and commoditize the female body. By rejecting and hating your own past pregnant fatness, you in fact comply with the false binary between maternity and sexuality that is enforced by heteropatriarchy. A survey conducted by the research agency AC Nielsen across urban centers in India reports, and I quote, 92% of the expecting fathers want their wives to be yummy mummy post their pregnancies, end quote. Yummy Mummy, when you insist that slimness and beauty are prerequisites of your selfhood and self-acceptance, you legitimize this coercive demand that every modern Indian mother should become a Yummy Mummy to attain self-worth. Yummy Mummy, I reject your reiterative linking of fat bodies to both disease and dis-ease. I reject your distorted definition of health as a calibrated slimness that indicts all fat mothers as unhealthy and incapable of self-confidence. Yummy Mummy, you do not radically challenge the institution of motherhood. You merely replace one coercive construct, the sacrificing mother, with another, the slim mother. In opposition to your disciplined, slimmed body, I flaunt my divine fat body, a body that is part of, but does not wholly constitute or consume my selfhood. Yummy Mummy, by deconstructing you, I wish to make space for the multiplicity of maternal bodies that exist between the sari and the size 0. I belong very proudly to this intermediate space. Differentially yours, Tummy Mummy. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Honored to be here with everybody. He told me to stand on the giant scale in the middle of the model agency waiting room. My head was screaming no. My heart was screaming no. But I found my 17-year-old self getting up off that scale. What did you eat today? The agent asked in an accusatory tone. I remember mumbling something about my healthy breakfast and my snack, a cranberry muffin. It's interesting the facts we remember decades later. No more cranberry muffins for you, he bellowed as he wagged his finger in my face. I felt every set of eyes in the small room staring at me getting scolded. And start dieting and come back weekly for weigh-ins. I don't recall saying a word. I may have grunted. I shuffled out feeling stung. I was too mad at myself for not having walked right out of that agency. Too mad for getting on that scale. Too mad for letting someone tell me there was something wrong with my healthy body. Too mad I didn't say something, anything. I never went back. I went off to university and got my degree, and I got some hips too. By then, I was a size 14. I was walking through a mall and was stopped by a model scout. I can still remember her startled face as I rebuffed her in a one-way conversation. Eventually, after I let her get a word in edgewise, she replied, I don't want you to lose a pound. And that is how my 23-year career started in plus-size modeling, being true to myself and true to my body. Over the years, the comments were often the same. Thank you. You look like me. When I see you, I feel included in fashion. I have a better idea of what an outfit may actually look like on my body. Being a plus-size model wasn't just a job. My curvy body was a statement of inclusiveness. In 2011, I was hit by severe autoimmunity, and by 2013, I was having severe trouble walking, talking, and using my hands. I could not get a fork to my mouth without stabbing myself in the face, and I would drop food on me and burn myself. My mind felt like it was disintegrating. I thought I was developing dementia and would be in a nursing home soon. I was in a complete panic. It wasn't just my body that was crumbling, my entire world was as well. Much of the time I looked and sounded like I was drunk. And like a mother protecting her child, all I wanted to do was shower my body with love. Send it all the energy it needed in any form it needed it. Hold it and say, I've got you. Everything is going to be okay. I love you no matter what. And one day I did just that. Racked in pain and sobbing, I cradled my body and said out loud, be whatever size you need to be. Be a 4, be a 14, be a 24. Pick a size that lets you run around and be pain-free. It doesn't matter to me. And it was in that moment that I realized how deep my body love ran, how deep the level of appreciation was for my body that had carried me around countries, had put food on my table, paid my mortgage, and was literally woven into the fabric of my life.
Thank you. I'm going to read a section of mine, Bowel Blues, Bowel Blows. And I will skip around a bit 2017, I leave the house stylized, color coordinated. My complexion is beaming. I'm all smiles with the elderly woman who compliments my blazer at the bus stop. My teeth are glistening. My hair is pulled back in a tight ponytail. I look fabulous. I feel terrible. I'm determined to keep going. I need a seat, but there are no seats. I don't ask for one. I know better. I live with invisible disability and chronic gastrointestinal health issues, but I still catch myself in moments internalizing that particular brand of ableism, ageism, and healthism at its intersections with fatness and blackness, the kind that leaves you blaming and second guessing the validity of your own embodied experiences. I stand for the entire ride. Now I'm at the subway, folks. I get to the subway, I feel wonderful. The cramps have stopped. I'm on with my day. No more profuse sweating. The feeling of the proverbial knife stabbing me from my inner navel out has subsided. I congratulate myself for leaving the house, for performing good body, for not being trapped by my body for yet another day. An absurd toast to neoliberalism and bootstrap ideology. So then a whole section of stuff happens, folks. And then here I am, I exit at Young and Bloor. And then it happens. And yes, it explodes. I stand there soiled and stained and alone in a packed subway station. Yes, to all who are watching, I have pooped my pants. I stand there in a stench, a painful reminder of how powerful my body is, how deliberate she can be, how powerful we are, how deliberate we can be, how powerful I am, how deliberate I can be. I stand there in that stench until the shock wears off. I continue to tell a story about standing at Young and Bloor, soiled, and the reconciliation I found with my body in that moment, recognizing that there was nothing I could do but just laugh uncontrollably and then cry. The moral of the story is we feel, our bodies remember, our bodies hold complex memories. This incident happened, actually it wasn't an incident, it was an awakening. It happened to me in 2017. It happened to me after a surgery I had in 2016. I will not have time to share that particular narrative, but what I do want to say is Black women, Black fat women, we can and do feel pain. And it is terribly violent when we are treated with anti-Black racism in hospitals, when we are subject to fat violence, fat hatred by our healthcare professionals. It is violent and it does not allow us to heal. So I hope you'll take a look at this chapter. I go on to talk about fashion and accessories and impression management and the way in which I live through what I call a triple consciousness of my fatness, my Blackness, and my womanness. Thank you.
Oh, thank you all. My goodness. There's such, I'm feeling it after listening to all those wonderful presentations. And it's like a simultaneous experience of the sharpness of the pain of so much of this, as well as the kind of beauty in naming it and owning it and talking about it and seeing and hearing that other people have articulated such, particular things that I thought maybe only lived in my heart. So this is very, very beautiful. For those of you who are participants, please, now is the time for questions. We'd love to have them. You can put them in. We've got one going already. Thank you, in the Q&A section in the Zoom chat box. But we've got one already, and Jill and May, I think maybe this is for you. We have one that says, can y'all talk more on including stories beyond overcoming success narratives? Was there any pushback from the publisher or from including those stories in general? Thanks. That's an awesome one. I invite both of you to please share your thoughts there.
I can start and say that it was a wonderful journey working with Demeter Press. I mean, at the end of the day, there was no pushback that we received. There was no expectation that these had to be good body stories or bad body stories. We were not a TIA, well, I shouldn't say that. I don't want to be sued by anybody, but we were not an after school special, you know? The role of this anthology was to give people an opportunity to speak their truth, to reflect on their embodied experience, and to put that down on paper. Would be my words. Mm-hmm.
And
May,
I can just add to that, definitely nothing but support from Demeter.
Mm-hmm.
The tricky part, of course, is always that we don't want to just be presenting fatness as a site of oppression and victimhood. And what I love about this book is that it really complicates and thickens our fat stories, that it's coming at it from so many different angles, that it does not underestimate the pain or that we feel or the rage that we experience, but it also intersects that with a lot of joy, with a lot of humor, and it makes it gives us a three-dimensional approach to fatness, which I really appreciate. So I think that's what we sought to do. And there's a sort of triangulation of all of these different stories taken together that I think gives us a really rich picture.
It also shows that we're human and we're international. It's just not one person in one category. It's everybody.
Agreed. I also wanted to just jump in, Josh, and say before we move to the next question, there are also stories that, you know, were hard to read. You know, there were stories that, you know, as an individual, I may not have necessarily seen it through the lens of the author. You know, I may not have necessarily agreed with everything they said or how it was presented, but they were excellent stories and they were narratives that needed to be told, you know, so this definitely wasn't about, you know, policing or looking for a certain way in which to manufacture fat stories. You know, it was really about seeing what we got in, reading through them, and recognizing the narratives that we thought needed to be told at the time of the anthology. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Thank you. That's a lovely bit, and this actually leads beautifully into another question we've got. And it's so wild to hear your story about the 2 decades that it took to put this together. This question is for you and May, you, Jill, and May again, as to what your thoughts would be to the follow-up or sequel to this book. I know, it's a mega one considering you're just exhaling from a 20-year, I know. But at the same time, I think that the progression of the conversation is undeniable, right? When I think about the first fat related reading I did in women's studies in first year of university, now 25 years ago, it is a very different conversation that we're having. Yes. So what do you think? Do you have a moment? Have you had a moment to kind of, you know what I mean? Take a breath in that direction to think about what might be next?
May, do you want to start?
I mean, I can say a lot of the work I'm doing now is looking specifically at the intersections between race and fat, and the ways that to talk about fat is to talk about race, that you know, discourses of obesity epidemic are a way of shutting down, you know, racialized and Indigenous people. And I think that's a lot of where I see the conversation needing to go more and hopefully beginning to go more. As to what the sequel would be, that's a really good question. I don't know. I have to think about that some more.
I'm not sure what the sequel would be to this text. I mean, there are certainly voices, you know, that were not encompassed in this book. Like, you know, we did not address, you know, various masculinities, for instance. You know, there isn't a story in here that speaks to trans fatness. So there are certainly many other volumes of fatness and a plethora of subjectivities that could be addressed in future books. You know, right now I'm thinking a lot of policy. I think a lot about policies and politics, you know, and I think about the way in which, you know, bodies are regulated, you know, the way in which fat is regulated, you know, the sorts of ways that we can look to how can we look to legislation to ensure or to better provide people with the platform of human rights, for goodness sakes. You know, so a long time ago with Sizeism Sucks, that was a big part of our work, was trying to get size and weight into the Ontario Human Rights Code as prohibited grounds for discrimination. You know, I think about that, especially now with COVID-19. You know, especially now with COVID-19, where we have seen fat bodies, you know, being relegated as unimportant or as the last to get the services they need. You know, we hear about this COVID-15, for goodness sakes. So right now in this moment, I'm thinking a lot about fatness and policy and how can we legislate, you know, how can we ensure that fat bodies, you know, receive and are seen as what they are, just a fat body, not a body that should be hated or a body that should be discriminated or should have their human rights stolen away from them.
I'd love to add one that, then and now. I mean, this journey started 20 years ago. Lots happened in the last 20 years. And interesting, of course, the BS bigotry is still there. However, we've all survived it. And I'd love to hear people's stories now, what they've managed to accomplish despite the BS that's out there, despite the bigotry. I mean, I took charge. I can't tell you how many doctors I've, confronted, and my response to when somebody says, I've had a couple of doctors, I was dying and they said, you need to lose weight. I'm on a deathbed. Okay. And so I said, I will stop eating. Now, I wasn't eating anything, but they don't seem to get that. And I said, I'll stop eating when you stop breathing. How about that? 100%. I promise I'll stop eating when you stop breathing. I'm telling you guys all, I want you all to start using that phrase and encourage it because, I mean, I've just seen too much pain, not just my own, but I don't remember what the term is now, but I pick up other people's energy and I can tell when they feel fat shamed, and because I've been there and even though I've lost weight, I'm still fat. Okay. I'm still fat up here. I haven't lost that much, but just enough to make now the doctors are telling me to put 10 pounds back on. I said, give me a few weeks. It don't take much. Okay. But I still have that mindset, but I moved on and still functioning. You know what I mean? And you talk about disabled. For me, the disability angle of it adds to the discrimination if you're fat. It's like double whammy. And if you're Black, triple whammy. If you're gay, quadruple, it just piles up. The only thing is that I encourage women, and I'll say this to everybody, is if you can learn to cope with one BS, the rest does get easier to cope with, but it doesn't get, it doesn't get easier in terms of how you live because we've been brainwashed. Does that make sense? So I'd love to see the before and after and how you grew away from that and how we move forward.
I thank you very much, Leanna. And Josh and I don't mean to jump in. I've got a burning question. Is there another question?
There are, but you are up, my friend. This is your time. Go for it.
My burning question is to Lise, actually, who I absolutely adore, and she knows that. Lise, what are your thoughts on social media, on popular culture today, and how that is strengthening body positivity, strengthening fat acceptance, or is it hindering? So really, I just want to have a chance to hear from Lise. Oh, I see that we're having problems with audio. Are we still having problems with audio? Oh, is Lise gone?
Jill, it looks like Lisa's gone. I wonder if we want to look at some of the questions.
Okay.
Q&A.
For sure. I can move along to that, and then if she jumps back in,
okay,
we'll return to this one, So this another question we've got in the Q&A is for all contributors, and the question is, what has been the impact on you of sharing your story? And what do you hope the impact is for readers? I love this. How has this landed for you, and how are you hoping this will land for other people? Anybody who would like to, you're very welcome to jump in, please.
Anyone?
I can go. It's interesting because it's been a number of years that this has been in process, and when the book was published, I was so excited to get my copies in December, and then I started seeing on social media Jill's getting all this press, and I'm like, oh my God, people are going to actually read my piece, So it just became so real, just around, because my piece is very personal. There's other pieces that are more academic, and although I think everyone shares some personal pieces, parts of themselves, but my piece is extremely personal. So I think it's just kind of like, oh, I don't know, like I hope it's a good impact, positive. My story is I've picked, highlights and lowlights, which is sort of part of my story and my journey. But I have landed, and I end my piece around sort of entering my 50s and entering kind of middle age in a clear kind of way, and just how much has shifted since, just in all these years that I've been around, how much has shifted for me. Not all the time, but much more of the time. So I hope that there's, so that people can relate, to my story, and can take from it, whatever is helpful for them.
I would agree. I'm grateful to be here with everyone. It sounds weird, but when I wrote this, it was many years ago, the original versions of these two poems. And so to edit them over the years and to keep thinking and reflecting back on what I really wanted to say and thinking about my experiences, I'm actually grateful for the work. I'm grateful that this book got published and that we're here, because it actually makes me more confident. It makes me feel better when I think about how this all came about and how this feels, because it's hard to tell people about the messaging that the world gives you when it comes to your weight and your identity. People don't always understand, and people certainly don't always get what it's like at the doctor's office when the doctor's telling you, hey, you should really make significant changes. And you're like, I don't, I don't think we're on the same page. So it's been helpful to me. It actually makes me feel more confident, and I'm really excited about the work. It's totally weird always to be published, but it's also totally awesome. So yeah.
Yeah, I'd make it quick. So essentially, you have one person to thank for that I am here today and that I published my piece in Body Stories, and that is Virgie Tovar. Because without her, yeah, without her, I wouldn't have known about the call for papers or contributions. So she was the one telling me in 2016 when I had the opportunity of a lifetime to meet her on Babe Camp Jamaica. I was the only European there, that I should write about that tattoo somewhere. And I started a blog back then that is now dormant. It's we're not talking about this anymore. And I took the story and I edited it more and made it into what it is today. But it also, like, the whole publishing process with you folks really got me into, because in the bio in the book it is written, I'm striving to becoming Germany's first certified intuitive eating counselor, and now you're looking at her. So I have 3 other colleagues now, so I'm not, I was the first, but I'm not the only one, which is awesome. And also interviewed Kat Posey recently for my podcast, Larger Living. So everything is coming together, and I have officially joined the Fatosphere. So yeah, thank you all for this.
I was asked.
Thank you, Dorothy. I just want to hop in and let everyone know that Lise Windishman is actually trying to get back in. She was bumped off, but I know we have only a couple minutes left, so I'll turn it back over to Josh now.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Folks, we do have some questions that have been unanswered, but we are at our time. But I do believe that if you want to find these lovely folks, social media can definitely help you make those connections. And so we're going to wrap up now. This is a quick one, but I really urge you all to go to anotherstory.ca, get yourselves your copy of this beautiful book. Deep, deep thanks to all of the participants for joining us, to the wonderful contributors for the bravery and steadiness to tell all of those stories. The Unifor National Chair in Social Justice and Democracy, She Does the City, and again, to Another Story Bookshop. Such gratitude. And Jill, I'm going to give you a moment, please. If there are any more bits of gratitude to share, please do that.
Oh, wonderful. I'm just looking at the questions and answers. I see that there are so many that we did not get to, so I'm hoping that when we cut off the Zoom that I'll somehow be able to save these and look back at them and probably answer some of them as well too. I just want to say thank you very, very, very much to everyone who came out, to everyone who has contributed, also to those who, were in the beginning of the projects, who left the project, whose relationship with fatness changed over the years. I just want to say it's been a real long journey. It's been a wild journey. It's been a non-linear journey. Someone asked, why did it take 20 years or almost 20 years? It took 17 years to come out. I couldn't answer that in one Zoom, but what I can tell you is this: when I began the project, I was so not in love with myself and not in love with my body. And I was so afraid to even say the word fat, that in the first iteration, it was P-H-A-T. My journey, this book is a journey for me of my own becoming and my own willingness to confront who I am, who I have always been, and who I love being, so really it's not a neat answer, neither is the anthology. As I said earlier, it's messy, it's complicated. Some of the stories you'll agree with, some of them you might not, but we welcome you to take the journey with us and grab a copy at Another Story Bookshop, at another beloved indie bookstore in your community, and support. Thank you very much. And do email us or send me a DM if I didn't get to your question. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Jill. And thanks again to everybody. Be well out there. Take care of yourselves. And we hope we get a chance to have more of this conversation again soon. Thanks, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your evening.